Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what I painted this month for October 2015. I feel like these episodes are getting later and later, so I should probably start keeping on top of them and putting up the video in a timely manner, rather than almost 2 weeks after the end of the month. So as you can see, a lot of gold was painted this month, some Stormcast Eternals, and somebody very large in the middle there, which some of you may recognise as Talos from Jason and the Argonauts. So, before we get to that juicy goodness, let's start off with the Stormcast Eternals, shall we? Because I've got some judicators here, and the one thing that strikes me about them from this particular angle is that they're not very colourful because they lack the shields of the Liberators, so they don't have any striking bits of white on the front like that, like the shield does. No big blocks of black either, so it's an awful lot of gold. I painted these in exactly the same way I did the Liberators, spraying them in gold, wash, the same gold over the top, and then the edges in shining gold. All the black parts are highlighted with grey and then a light grey, and I think it's quite effective at making them look more dark and brooding than your typical Stormcast, which is what I was going for. Quite tasty if I do say so myself. From the rear you can see the scrolls dangling off them and the arrows. I had a little bit of a dilemma deciding whether the Prime was allowed to use the special bow, but then someone showed me a picture that actually showed the crossbow Prime using the special crossbow, so clearly they are allowed to have it. There's nothing in the rules that says they can't, so especially for the bow it makes sense for him to use it. Looking at some close-ups here, you can see that his bow looks a little bit different to everybody else's. It's odd to say that he's the least colourful when all he's lacking is black. When I say colourful, I just mean he has the least variety on him. So it's an awful lot of gold because he doesn't have the second black shoulder pad. From the rear there, you can see the grey on the bits of the cloak that are sticking through the back of his legs there. The purple in all the joins I think breaks it up nicely as well. Now we move over to these paladins. These look a lot more varied colour-wise than the other units because of the black armour panels which I've decided to put in there. I've seen some pictures of them where people have just left it gold, but I think they look a little bit bland if you do that. I think filling them in makes these guys look like the big beefy unit of the army, which is pretty true. Quite a bit of silver going on with the hammers, and the fact that you can see the white on the shoulders from the front makes them look a bit more exciting, I think, from that angle. And then at the back they've got a lot more scrollage going on and a little bit of white on their backpacks. Not exactly sure what the purpose of those backpacks is, but these guys were a lot of fun to paint, as all the Stormcast have been really. Close up there, I think the large handle on the hammer in purple as well helps. That adds a bit more colour, because generally there isn't a huge amount of it. All the other weapons on the units typically don't have large handles, so it's nice to have that larger patch of purple there. And then you can see them from the side, you can see the scrolls, which I think are very easy to make look very nice. Just with wash and then going over the raised parts again with the bone colour. I think they look pretty tasty. So now the one everyone's been waiting for, we have Talos from Jason and the Argonauts. It is an action figure from X+, and it is about 9 inches tall. So I got him a nice round base, stuck him on there, sprayed him in black, sprayed him in gold, wash, the gold over the top again on all the raised areas, then highlights with shining gold, but because he was so huge, it was still looking a little bit bland at that point, so I decided to go into the middle and on the edges of the various edge highlights, so even finer highlight with silver. And you can see him in some size comparison shots here. There's a Stormcast there from various angles, so you can see that he towers over them. The joints were somewhat articulated on this action figure, but I super glued those in place, so around his waist and his armpits and under his chin I applied some super glue just to make sure none of the pieces were going to move after I painted it and dislodge any of the paintwork. You'll notice that his sword is nice and straight, but that wasn't always the case. When I got it, it was completely bent inwards towards his groinal region, so with some hot water I bent it back into place, then started painting it, but as I was working on it, it was ever so slowly bending back into its original position, which of course would not be good. So mid-paint job, I had to saw off the sword. Right next to the hand is where I made the cut, and then I drilled a hole in it, drilled a hole in the hand, and then just pinned it so it's going to remain perfectly straight with any luck, and then just painted over the cut area that was damaged. So you can't really tell unless you look closely. I think I was pretty careful. And in this picture you can see him next to the giant that I use for Kings of War. So about 4 times taller than that. Yeah. And this guy is most of the time going to be a giant for Age of Sigmar unless I finalise some rules for using him in some other way, which I may well do, because Age of Sigmar gives you a lot of freedom to do whatever you want really, with there being no points. So if he's ridiculously overpowered it won't matter too much. I'll just take less stuff in the army. There he is next to a Space Marine Dreadnought, also towering over that to give you some idea of size. And there we've got some Stormcast around his feet as well, just to show you what it's going to look like down on the battlefield when he's standing behind them. I think you can just about see the silver in the centre of the various highlights as we look at his face here. Like on the end of his nose and on the cheekbones you can see a bit of silver, hopefully. I think I understand now why people enjoy painting large miniatures, because I haven't painted a huge amount of them, but this was actually a lot of fun to do. It was very easy. All the details were very big and chunky, so I didn't have to hunch over the table getting right down there to pick out the tiniest of details. And it was actually quite refreshing to not have to do that. So definitely money well spent, and I would encourage anyone to look one of these up on eBay if you're looking for a giant for your Stormcast Eternals, since they don't have anything large at the moment. And there you can see the group shot again. So, as far as how productive October was, not hugely. I mean, Talos didn't take a ridiculous amount of time to paint, the Stormcast don't take a ridiculous amount of time either. But I think overall that's enough. If I aim to get 3 things done per month, that's pretty good by my standards. As far as November goes, I've already painted 1 thing, which I'm not going to tell you about, because then it can be a surprise for the next video, can't it? But I've got lots and lots of Kings of War stuff and Dungeon Saga stuff waiting to paint, and a couple of bolt action things as well. So it remains to be seen which of those will jump up to the top of the priority list and make it before the end of November. Hopefully I'll have finished at least 2 or 3 units though, so I've got something to show you next time. I probably won't do anything Stormcast related this month because I need a little bit of a break from the gold after all this lot. But I have got some more of those waiting to go probably next month as well. Some more Liberators and some of the characters from the Age of Sigmar box, which are currently sprayed gold, so they're not going to take a vast amount of work to do. So that's going to leave you in suspense, leave you salivating at the prospect of seeing those finished models next month. And with that, I will say ta-ta for now, ladies and gentlemen.